What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I am Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Lauren Khalil. I hope everybody is doing well today. We are going to dispense with our usual pleasantries right now because we have a jam-packed show. We're going to have Magic Mike Halpin on, the man who is the wizard behind the Excel sheet that I'm sure many of you saw that tracked everything that was going on with quarterfinals. He did the Lord's work and really kept a lot of people informed. We're going to talk to him about why he did that and what he learned. And then we're going to bring on CrossFit coach Kenny Johnson later on in the show to sort of talk about what does this mean for us moving forward, because Kenny put some stuff on social media that I thought was really good. But you guys ready to jump into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Before we get into headlines, got a couple quick headlines we want to get to. We want to thank our sponsor for today, and that is Garmin. Super excited to have them on board. They make some of the best training smartwatches and wearable devices in the world. They have sent us all an Epix Pro, and I am learning more and more about this thing each week. It's like I said last week, it's like having Jarvis from the Avengers on your wrist. Like, that's what this thing really can do. It gives you all kinds of data that you can use to help optimize your training, track your workouts. It has a caddy feature. If you're on a golf course, it can tell you, what club you should hit, how far away you are from the pin. I mean, you really can go deep on this stuff. It gives you a training readiness score based on your sleep quality, your recovery, your training load, and more. So you can say, all right, today might be a good day to back off, or yeah, I can really lean into it. It gives you a training status, so you get insights to know whether you're training productively, you're peaking, or you're strained. You got performance metrics on there. Engage your performance with advanced training metrics, VO2 max and training load. It's got recovery time stuff, HRV status, wrist-based heart rate, all kinds of stuff. And I'm really like, what's cool is the other day I've really learned how to track my workouts more effectively with it. And I'm really getting into the, oh wow, this set took me this long. And you can go in, and after you track an activity, and you can change, like I did cleans here, and I did assault bike here, and I did, this was lunges. I mean, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface on this thing. And what's great about it, it's a one-time charge. You buy the smartwatch, there's no monthly fee. The data is yours. They have a cool app on your phone, and I cannot speak highly enough about Garmin. I'm absolutely loving this thing.
That's the best
It's a
part.
rocket ship on your wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One rocket ship on your wrist. I like that. One-time charge. Data is yours forever. I love it. Yeah, like you mentioned, you can customize it as much as you want. Lauren, you'll be happy to hear that I finally changed my watch face just a little bit.
There you go.
The colors?
Yeah, kept the color because I like red. It's it's a nice strong color. But I customized
Besides black and white.
That's on the front, just so I can track my steps, heart rate, everything like that. So good to go.
All right, Garmin.com is the site you can check out. Check out the Epix Pro. They also have some other models on there that'll set you up if you're running, cycling. Again, there are so many cool bells and whistles here, and we're going to have some of their athletes actually start telling you about those here in the coming weeks. So you don't need to take it from us. You can take it from people who are a lot smarter than we are, and use this for professional athletic pursuits. All right, a couple quick headlines we want to get to before we bring on Mike Halpin here. The first is that Tia Toomey has signed with GoRuck. That is a big deal. Congratulations to GoRuck for landing her, and for Tia for now kind of being the face of that. We have two sponsorships that were announced. We knew about this one courtesy of the Barbell Spin. They announced this first. Northern Spirit, the official uniform sponsor, and the U.S. Border Patrol is another major partner. They've been part of the semifinals and games in the past, so those two are also on board again in 2024. So that's it. Those are our quick headlines. Short and sweet. Oh, we got a competition going on this weekend. If you're a fan of strongman, World's Strongest Man qualifiers going on in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Our good friend Rob Kearney is taking part in that. He took Lauren's rainbow beard idea, and they actually executed that. They've been giving out the rainbow beards there in South Carolina. So I hope all the best for Rob. I know after day one he was outside of a qualifying spot, but two of his best events were coming up. So hopefully he can get himself into a position here. Okay, let's get into what we really want to talk about today, and we're going to bring on Mike Halpin. Mike, how you doing, man?
Everybody. Good. How's everybody doing?
We're doing great. First of all, I told you this before we came on, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge this publicly. But I just wanted to thank you for all the hard work that you did, that you put into tracking everything that was going on with quarterfinals. It was a great way for people like us who really try to dive deep into this to get a great idea to what was going on, track things in real time. And I just wanted to thank you for putting that in, because I'm guessing that like to quote Ron Burgundy, that escalated quickly for you.
Yeah. So I got a text from a friend that says, "Have you seen what's happening?" This is a week ago, last Wednesday. Is that, I think, when Armageddon was, if you want to call it that?
Mm-hmm.
And it was quickly a lot of names that we all know. I won't do the whole history. I think everybody's seen that play out. And so what I did is, and I've been doing this for you, Sean, and for others, like pulling data for athletes. So I've gotten okay at it. It's not too bad to pull stuff from CrossFit. Thankfully, they haven't shut the door on that. Hopefully that stays the same. So what I started to do is I was comparing what was their original score to what is their current score.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, you could see through some of the spreadsheets I've shared. In other words, here's where they were. They had 200 reps. Now they have 150 reps. Okay. Well, obviously there was some change there. I don't have any inside track to the scoring team, the judges, or anything like that, but it's a lot of like meteorology or something like that to talk about Lauren's old career. It's it's a lot. Well, maybe I was also like on the sideline there at moments, but it's a lot of just like, here's what I'm seeing. I can't tell you that these are penalties, but obviously somebody just got 50 reps taken off, like a Pat Vellner or somebody like that. Yeah, I think if I knew last Wednesday what I know now, I probably maybe would have just kept some of this to some private chats or talked to some athletes on the side. Running this for the last week and being, again, more or less the meteorologist of all the penalties is a task. I went camping with my wife over the weekend, and it was like, well, we're going. And again, just to add to this crazy story, Yella Hosta hit me up as I was in my car leaving to go camping, and was like, "Do you think I could do this while you're gone?" And I was like, "Well, I can't tell you how because I'm not at home, but sure, go for it." And then I come back to unplugging for a weekend, and Yella Hosta is
Wow.
the games rookie last year, is posting very similar data. So pass the torch to him.
Train him young.
So yeah. Ins and outs of that. It's started to become like now that it's closed, starting to assess some of that. I think CrossFit will have, obviously they just put out the teams version of this last night, but they usually do put out a comprehensive guide of here's everybody, every one score or one rep penalty versus a major penalty and what all that means. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and seeing how close again I got to it. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Well, I was going to say, but you didn't, like, sticking with the Armageddon meteorologist theme, like you had the opportunity to step back if you wanted to, but you Bruce Willis it and went straight for it and kind of drove through it a little bit to try and save the CrossFit sphere, because I don't think, not just from an athlete advocacy standpoint, but I think from a competition legitimacy standpoint, like bringing light to that kind of stuff is important. I mean, were you even remotely aware of that, or what was kind of the driving force for you in terms of uncovering this data and kind of keeping it up?
I think at first it was like a lot more interested in knowing like who's who and how bad it was and that sort of stuff. So it was just like assessing a lot. It quickly did. And now the conversations that I'm in quickly are becoming a lot more athlete advocacy. And what should they do now? So there are conversations that I can say are happening that I believe the door's shut, to be honest with you. As far as this year, I don't honestly think that anything is going to drastically change, but I think there is still a conversation building with athletes that were impacted, as well as sort of athlete advocacy groups, or even the judges group there, that that I'm talking to and helping where I can. And it quickly did turn into that. I think a big part of that is years and all the years in the past, and there haven't been competitions besides the Open. These penalties were really just a siloed email situation. So like Pat Vellner gets an email saying, hey, we think you get a 20% penalty here based on some count of reps. That's 50 reps for you. He then works that with CrossFit. He appeals. I think every athlete is probably appealing the first version of that. They appeal, and then it's, well, no, we're not going to do that. Or in some cases that we saw just in the last few days, the appeal is granted, and then it's given to them. With this, and I'm trying not to like really say that I really created something out of nothing here, but the biggest part of this that I've seen is bringing this to light and saying, these athletes aren't alone. Like they're being told that your reps are bad. Well, in this case, hundreds of athletes' reps were bad. And they're actually able to see not only were their reps questionable, and I don't think any athlete's actually saying that their reps were all perfect and that this was some witch hunt or anything. I think they're acknowledging that, hey, the camera angles or the judging or whatever put them in a spot. But they're actually able to see, okay, well, there's hundreds of other athletes that also got penalties. Some cases they got the same percentage penalty. Some cases they got others, and they're going back and saying, hey, which reps were bad? Or it's always hard to play this like pointing the finger game, but like, why did they get a different penalty than I got if you're saying it's a major penalty and they got 15%, but I got 24%? And so that's been a lot of the conversation of bringing this to light and saying, here's all of the penalties I can see, not just here's Paige's or here's Pat's or here's Sydney's, which are, I think, catching the most eyes, but really seeing all these athletes and saying like, no, you in 67th were docked 15%, and here's what that looks like for you compared to the field. Yeah.
What was some of the variability of things that you see from athletes? Because maybe this is a bad analogy, but it almost reminds me of when I used to work in TV and the news director would say, don't talk to people about your salary. Like you never talk about the money. And then you start comparing notes and I'm like, well, why am I being paid this and this person's being paid that? And I'm wondering if there were scenarios where athletes were reaching out to you and kind of comparing what their situations were, and one athlete might like be granted more reps while the other one is not. Did you see any of that?
There is every A to Z, there is every scenario that is being talked about. Yeah, I think so. And that one specifically as well is this athlete. Well, and I'll say this. One thing is about workout one, and it's about the step ups. I think everybody's sort of made that clear. There's a few like Luis Ascamora of not standing up a snatch, maybe. There's a whole other issue going on with video issues, and it's either comes down to some cases where the video didn't work out of the gate, some cases where they're saying the wrong video was posted, or they're saying like the link didn't work afterwards, or the link got taken down by YouTube because of music. Like, so again, there's all these issues. But even in those cases, there is this, hey, you did it for them, what about me scenario where it's, well, hold on, this athlete, you found their video, or you fixed their 0 score on the video and things like that. You didn't even respond to my appeal, or you gave me a penalty on Sunday and it closed on Monday. So when I appealed my penalty, you haven't even looked at it yet. And you said that the door was closed. Rose Scott comes to mind in that case. They said that they had the wrong video in that case. So yes, there is quite a bit of this scenario is different than that scenario, or at least it's being seemingly treated differently. Again, I have no inside view to what Dave or Boz or anybody's doing over there. I have talked to a few of the judges that worked on some of that, or at least worked on the team's version of it. And I don't think that anything is wrong in what they're necessarily doing. I think it's structure-wise, it's what they need to do to get through this many videos and this many athletes. But I think there's quite a bit of just shocking who's who and what's happening to some athletes and not happening to others for sure. Yeah.
Well, I guess with that variability in mind, and I don't want this to come across as like some this judgment or condemnation of the process either way, but I think one of the ideas that always kind of brings people to center is hey, well, every athlete was put through the same process, and every athlete was given the same level of process, or given the same treatment across the variability. That's almost kind of like the guiding line of how we North Star this system.
Mhm.
Is there like, what degree of confidence would you give to that statement this year? Because it seems like there's more variability to that. It seems like athletes under seemingly similar scenarios were treated differently, and it could be that the process is still going out. But it just maybe we're just uncovering it for the first time. But it does seem like there could be some issues with that.
I'll do my best not to name names, of course, because there are some people that got appeals granted that I'm aware of. And just to say, I was 69th percentile in the Open, so it's not like I submitted scores. So anything I'm saying is secondhand at best. So, but yes, I'm aware of cases that people seemingly went down the same paths to the same people, to the same appeals process, to the same everything. People had videos that weren't working. They didn't get the response that was seemingly given to others. And I've seen a lot of 0 scores that are fixed. And I've seen a lot of like you saw it on workout 4 where people submitted their max reps versus they submitted their total reps. That was a big one for Sahir Kaya and a few others. Is those were fixed. So the channels were open for somebody to say, hey, you didn't get my video. Here it is. I posted, you can see I posted it to YouTube on Monday or before it was due. You can see that it's been available. It got taken down or whatever, but like, here's the paper trail. I've seen sort of the responses back that just say, understood, the penalty stands. Or even with the step ups, we understand what you're saying, the penalty stands, but in other cases, you see an athlete go through the same channels and they get a penalty reduction. And in some of those cases, it's not to say they shouldn't have got a reduction or anything like that, but it does speak to, Tommy, what you're talking about is it exactly the same across the board, or is there anything that would show, okay, these two athletes in parallel went down the exact same path to the exact same people and have seemingly different responses, at least in the emails that are sent. I mean, there's emails where it's like in the email, they're saying, yeah, we forgot to send you this email. Or in the email, they're saying, we get what you're saying and we feel bad for you. This isn't verbatim, but like, we're not going to do anything about it. Or you haven't asked about this, but even in Dave's response the other day, we're probably not going to do this again next year. So that shows fault and shows that the process isn't working, but it kind of just does this weird math thing of like, well, it was better for most than it was for some. So what do you want us to really do? So that's seemingly the conversations that I'm in now is like, okay, how do we fix this, make it better, but like still have to understand that semifinals for age groups is next week and semifinals for everybody else is a few weeks after that. The train is moving. Like, you're not really going to stop it. But yeah, those conversations are for sure happening, and the comparisons are happening now. Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of comparisons, I remember last year there seemed to be a ton of penalties that came out of quarterfinals, and they CrossFit published a list, but there wasn't the reaction to that there is to this. And my question for you would be, what makes this year, in your mind, so much more controversial, or why it's striking more of a nerve than it did last year?
For starters, Tia Toomey got penalized, and Pat Vellner got penalized, and I mean, and they're still going to semifinals. But then also Paige Powers, Sydney Wells, like that was the text this time last week was, wait a second, who's penalized. Pat Vellner, the best mover in the sport for the men's side, that posts every single one of his workout videos. We all can see him. We all can see that he's moving well better than any of us. And he got penalized. I think that's actually a big piece of it, because in even talking to a few of those athletes, they were believing that possibly those regions were impacted more, but really it was just, or more earlier on, really it was just names like Luis Oscar at Proven or some of these athletes. And it was the names that were being called out, where you may have seen it with like the V-ups last year. You may have seen it like with some of the quarterfinals workouts last year, but it still was just sort of like, okay, I didn't turn around when I was supposed to, or I was facing the bar and you gave me a 2-rep penalty or 1-rep penalty or something like that. So I think it a lot, like the shock out of the gate, the Armageddon per se, was names of people that were, and then here's the part B, up until this year, and the rule book was changed prior to this, and we didn't see it in action to really see until now. A major penalty was 15%. It was locked in at 15%. It's now 15 to, just trying to remind myself, it's now 15 to 40%. So where somebody would say on a 100-rep workout, okay, you're now down to 85 reps. Well, you could be down to 75 reps. And at the elite top of the sport, those are hundreds of places. Like Paige was dropped to 700 something out of the gate. She's 100th in the East, but like worldwide, she was dropped on that workout. She was dropped. So at that point, it almost becomes like a death sentence on your season, because there is no coming back. There is no like, hey, I'm in 40th, 41st, and if so-and-so goes team or this, or like I still have a chance or whatever. It is, if that appeal does not work, your season is done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was the big shock of it as well. And that's what really plays into the previous question that Tommy was asking about, is you have athletes saying, what makes my workout 24% and what makes their workout 15%? Because those are both major penalties. And the language around that I see around major penalties is, you've done a substantial amount of no reps, not a number, so we're giving you a major penalty. And so what's substantial at 15% versus what is substantial at 24%, when you're talking about like Pat Vellner got a 20% penalty. Sorry for all the non-numbers people, just your eyes are glazing over. But Pat got a 20% penalty. That was worth 50 reps on that workout. It knocked him from first down to like 21st. So he'll be a little bit earlier on in the heats at the semifinal. I think they'll put him up to the top. Yeah, he might jump in there pretty quick. Mm-hmm. But so with that, that's the jump that some people are making. And then Paige and Sydney were far beyond that. Like they were getting dropped just to basically the floor. And it reminds me, and Tommy probably remembers this, like 2013, 14, there was an athlete, and it was box jumps. It wasn't step ups.
He was rebounding, right?
Box jumps, and he was rebounding, and he wasn't standing tall at the top of the box. Mm-hmm. He was DQ'd from the Open. His affiliate was.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. His affiliate was DQ'd from judging people for the rest of the time. And that's almost as close as to the shock and awe of what this is you're not just saying, hey, those reps don't look great. Here's 5%, even 15% penalty, and what that means. You're just basically saying, hey, your season's over, and I don't know who was judging you, but they probably shouldn't. Like, that's what was being called into question here, of like some of these athletes who this is their life for the last however many years, and they're basically just being told, nope, your season's over in that 20-minute workout and you're done. So like, I think that speaks to the shock and awe, and like why this year was different is it's partially just the names, and then also that the penalties seemingly are more severe, but not in a controlled way where it's like, well, you did this many no reps, therefore it's this penalty.
I got to follow up to that. And this is something that I'm wondering if the unintended consequence of widening the quarterfinals field to 25% So you go from, I think, 5,000 last year to now, I think the number was somewhere around 15,000 this year signed up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that last year, let's say that this happens last year, that Paige Powers, because there are fewer people, may have been able to absorb that penalty and still be inside a qualifying spot. But now because you have more bodies in it, that penalty is having a much bigger effect on where she winds up, because so many more people can now get in between her and the qualifying spot. And that is that, in what you've seen, is there something to that, or is that not the case?
I think that could actually be true in smaller regions, because like there's just more people. Like in some of the smaller regions, there's not even 700
Right.
athletes in there, where it's almost basically you just got dropped to the bottom. In North America and Europe, there's a few thousand athletes in each. So it drops her substantially, but like it's not the same exact impact. But yes, for sure, because, and I think Jacob Hebner spoke to this well, and a few other athletes have sort of talked around this. You're basically calling that their workout is worth 700th place. Like, and that's obviously not true, because if you looked at every workout, and not that anybody can do this, so it creates this like weird argument. But if you looked at every single athlete's workout from 1 to 700, first of all, their video is probably not there.
Yeah.
They may not even be doing the workout right, and their reps probably look worse than Pat's, worse than Paige's, worse than Sydney.
Yeah.
I judged a few workouts of my own affiliate, and I could tell you every video I've seen of an elite athlete looks probably better. So that's definitely a piece of it, is you have more people playing, therefore there's a lot more scenarios of like middling. So it basically just all these athletes jump in between, and if you actually judge those athletes too, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah. I actually, like we discussed this on our show last week, like if I had actually submitted my scores, because I'm a dingus and forgot, like I would actually be an example of that, right? Because in the first workout, I would have fit between some of those penalized athletes. But I don't have a video. I was not competing for that. And I wouldn't have, if someone dropped below 300th in that workout, and you're saying that that score is worth 300th, I would have been ahead of them. And if they had gone through the process and asked for my video, I wouldn't have been able to provide one, just competing for different reasons.
Yeah.
But so that is a very real scenario. And who knows, like, I mean, for someone like Paige, I think or in the more deep fields, it wouldn't have made a difference ultimately. I think in the 400 spots, maybe that would probably be needed to get back into a qualifying spot. Maybe it would have. But it also speaks to something that you brought up with Josh Golden's situation back in 2013. His video was checked because he won he won that workout worldwide. He had the top score in the world. And so then it was requested of him to validate it to win prize money. But if he just finished like 4th or 5th, then he would have never had that checked. He would have moved on. We would have never seen that. And maybe that's a blind spot in the system, is that like it's almost like you get
be good, but don't be that good.
Yeah, it's like regulation by exposure almost, where it's like, because you're good enough to have like the high level exposure, then you're the ones that gets the sword, or what do they say in politics, like the tallest daisy gets trimmed first,
squeaky wheel gets grease.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't maybe we can touch on that when we talk about maybe ways to improve it, but I don't know off the top of my head how to fix that, right? Because it just doesn't seem like there's the manpower to judge that.
Yeah, and the Open actually has a process, and I'm sure Kenny might speak to this as well, so I won't steal it from him. But like, if you submit your video outside an affiliate, your video's live. If you did the judges course, you can vote on it, and the vote's a little wonky because it's like, well, how closely are somebody either like eagle-eyed on these videos, or how much are people just sort of like, I don't like this guy? No. But like, there's a voting process. That's definitely been talked around. I think any option being thrown out at the moment, not to like put shade on any of these, but I think any option like triaging the moment is sort of just like, I don't know that that's better or worse. I'm sorry, Kenny. But I think there's some great ideas being thrown around. Like any of those need work. Where I get concerned from an athlete advocacy perspective, if I can touch on that for a moment, is the season hasn't been the same nearly ever. Like unknown and unknowable shouldn't be the structure of the sport. Like it should be like, you don't know what this next workout is. Here's chaos at the game sort of thing. But like how you make it, like I go from A to B to C to D here, shouldn't really be just like Dave saying, hey, next year we're probably going to do something different. Like, okay, how do I qualify? How do I submit a video? Where should my camera be? And should it like be on a floor plan? Like any of those are just sort of like, we changed it again, and now you're going to go to sanctionals. Now you're going to go to a semifinal. There's going to be 4, now there's 2, and like that sort of thing where it's just like, no, just honestly ride the speed bumps here and just give a season that is the same, where you can actually look back 2-3 years and say, okay, now we can see that we should probably tweak this thing. Like this has given us a couple years now. And I think last year and this year shows a little bit around quarterfinals and videos and all that sort of stuff to probably say that it should be different. But like that's a piece where I'm a little hesitant to say, okay, yeah, let's do something different again, because you're just telling these athletes, hang on for another year and hope in the words of men here to say, yeah, they got a handle on this version of it. I was gonna speak on, I know you asked me before we started, like numbers and anything like that. Is there we want to
Yeah,
talk about that?
I mean, again, I would like to know.
I could go on about this all day. I don't know.
No, sure. And listen, if you want to hang out when we bring Kenny on and have that discussion with us, you're more than welcome. If we have stuff to do, that's fine too. I just trying to be respectful of your time, but yeah, I would honestly just like to know. And I asked you a little bit about this before. It's like, how does this compare to prior years? Obviously, it's getting more attention. But as far as how many people were penalized and what the proportion of that is to the actual field, is this really an outlier?
I don't think it's more than last year. I think that V-up one really threw everybody for a loop.
Yeah.
So with that workout and a few that I've seen from last year, and there's a few folks like in the same areas of myself that have gone back and looked, and I think it's close, but it's not more. The other rule change, I just saw this last night when they posted their team's results for penalties. It was a little hard to read in the rule book. CrossFit is only looking at a single workout. So that's really why workout 1 has so many eyes on it, and why people are a little maybe confused, is that CrossFit, in their own language about the team quarterfinals, they said, we watched workout 1 for every team. Well, every team, I don't know about that, but like we focused in on workout 1. So they've done the same here for the individuals. What that means is there's a whole lot for workout 1. And then all of the rest of the workouts, what I can see is that it's, okay, maybe they looked at workout 2, and there's a few things that you can just sort of see with workout 2. Did they throw the wall ball high enough? Were they rebounding off the box during the burpee box jump overs, things like that, where you could just sort of immediately see like, okay, if they do it wrong in the first round, they're probably going to do it wrong every round, something like that. So it lets them watch a little bit more. Workouts 3 and 4, I've heard from multiple athletes, both in individual and age group quarterfinals, that says nobody even watched their video, or their video still shows as submitted, even though both quarterfinals are closed. So, so like they're showing that not only did somebody not watch it, but they didn't even update to say that it was actually validated or anything along those lines. So that's again a piece around comparing it to previous years, the 15% versus 15 to 40, and then focusing in on one workout. That's a little bit that it is a different year, and the numbers aren't directly comparable. Because if you look at last year's numbers, you can see like every workout has like, okay, here's a bunch here, here's a bunch here, major minor penalties and stuff like that. And then again, I'm reading the tea leaves, reading the weather here. I've tried to start grouping them into different categories. So like a major penalty is 15% plus, a minor penalty is lower than 15%. But then also score corrections, which is like the workout 4, they submitted the wrong score sort of thing. It's also zeros, like ones that were zeroed, but then the score was added later, seemingly after they fixed the video. Then 0 scores, and then what I would term as like uncertain penalties, because I'm okay at math and okay at Excel, but if they take the time, if they take it from 18 minutes on workout 2 to 270 reps, like I don't know what the penalty is to actually say the math on like how much that's worth or what. So for the men, all adjustments for the men, I can see 629. Again, that's actually not too bad, but that's almost half of them are score corrections. So like the score was either 0 or it was fixed in some way. And then for the women, there's 527, but the same sort of thing. Nearly half of them are score corrections or minor penalties. And a minor penalty could literally be you were facing the bar or facing the wall ball or facing the whatever. And then they said, like, you didn't turn around when you were supposed to. Yeah. Major penalties, just to speak to Dave's math the other night, major penalties, 15% plus, they are like not the majority of any category. Like there's not a whole lot of them. And I think to that extent, Dave is sort of correct there. Well, I don't think he said this, but just what we've talked about is like, I think it's who, not how many, that some of this sort of gets the shock and awe.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. It's almost like this, like 1-2 punch, right? It's like, oh, athletes we're not used to seeing get penalized, but they're still in it. Okay. And that's almost like the introductory like panic mode. And then you see someone who is a top 10 athlete at the games get penalized and get pushed out of qualifying. So their season's done. And then it's like full blown panic. All right, well, if that could happen to them, could it happen to me? That kind of guides the discourse going there on out. But I guess my last question for you, Mike, involves kind of the suggestion around, hey, like, let's ride the speed bumps a little bit. I know you're pretty clued in online, at least from what I see. You know, you can read the tea leaves a little bit.
Maybe too clued in.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Do you think the space, and I get kind of, this is almost kind of goes with this thing. Do you think the space is prepared for CrossFit to actually put their foot down like that and be like, hey, we're going to ride these speed bumps out and you got to be patient? Because it seems like the patience for CrossFit to make those hard decisions is starting to wane.
I think the next few days and weeks will be telling for that, because everybody's it's already sort of into phase out. You're seeing age group quarterfinals, and then you're going to see age group semifinals next week. If this just becomes like a news item, I think CrossFit could honestly ride it out, because Dave's already spoken to it and he's already said like, hey, maybe we're going to do something next year. We'll workshop a few things, whatever they want to say, and then we'll wait for the rule book by the end of the year or early next year to say really what that might be differently. So you just put the hope like far out there. I think there's the possibility of some athletes speaking together to say, no, we want to know now-ish, like what you're planning to do, or at least workshop with you and say, what does this look like? I don't know that that's exactly the PFAA. I've spoken to mostly just penalized athletes, but between the PFAA and the AFJ, so many acronyms, I think both of those parties are in a spot where they know that this is basically their moment to speak up a little bit further, but picking their battles in the right ways. So I think that actually could push it to say, no, we want to know what you're planning to do, because we want a voice in that situation. I mean, we did see Brent obviously as a spokesman for the PFA. We saw the things like Fort Worth and the heat sort of thing that came out. Or we saw it last year, even with like, are we going in the lake or pull up bar heights and rings and whatever else? Like there's places where voices are speaking up more now than ever, maybe, but just because we're trying to move in that direction for a lot of these athletes. But I don't know that HQ has ever really been sitting at that same table in the same way. Of just like, no, we hear you, but we're not really going to respond too closely on our concerns about the heat. We're not really going to say, we could say you probably won't have a problem with the lake and then just never put somebody back in the lake, like any of that sort of stuff. But they're not really going to like say like, well, here's what our idea now. I think it'll be like, hey, in January, what do you think of this? Like, or after the games, what do you think of this? Where it may just need to wait and see. And the only problem there is obviously it's a topic now. So like strike while the iron's hot sort of thing. It's like, okay, the most press any of these athletes are going to get is right now, because in a month from now, we're going to be saying who's going to the games, and it's just going to be, okay, well, these athletes are the focus for the rest of the season. And then, oh yeah, you remember V-ups last year? Or, oh yeah, you remember now step-ups this year? It's like, yeah, okay, that stunk. But here we are. It's the Open. We're back to it. I do think there's one place where I'm a little concerned is if it starts having a bit of crossfire, where there's people asking about videos and saying, why don't you post your video? Why don't you post your video? I've spoken a little bit about this. I think it's a little bit like, I'm obviously grieving some of these situations, and you kind of just see these athletes like saying things where you're just sort of like, I don't know that anybody did perfect reps. We're also not seeing videos where athletes didn't get penalized and seemingly were the perfect video that CrossFit believes that was the majority of the videos. We're starting to see people ask about that too. It's like, well, okay, if you think these athletes shouldn't have been penalized, where's their video? But also, where's the winners' videos? Where's all of like, if you won your region or won the world or won your age group, where are those videos to say like, yep, CrossFit looked at this video, every rep stood up perfectly, there's no issue here. Hey, what's the next one? The wall ball workout. Where's the gymnastics workout? Where's the weightlifting workout? And like, did they actually do everything they were supposed to do? Because that's a piece of this, is saying like, no, we believe they honed in on one workout and then they honed in on a bunch of athletes. But if you looked at Pat's video, I watched it, looks good to me. I'm not a judge. I applied, by the way. I didn't get a response. But like, it looked okay to me. And then I've seen some of these athletes that are penalized. It looks about the same. I actually haven't seen a winner's video in whole. I've seen reels and things like that. So I think that's where it's
I've made reels too, and I'm not putting my bad reps in my reels.
Yeah, right. I did one last night where it was like box step ups. It was the first 5 reps, I think, was in my in a reel I did last night.
First round only.
Yeah. So I think that's a piece of it too. Is like, I think there's these penalized athletes. I think they now have nothing to do but maybe talk about this. And I think some of them are being a little bit quieter in either moving on, or some of them are being a little bit quieter in a strategic sort of sense of like, no, I'm going to figure this out, and then I'm going to say what I want to say. So yeah, I think that's possibly where this could go, but I think it's just a lot of hurt conversations at the moment where people are just like beside themselves. So people say a lot of things when that's happening.
I think there's a good jumping off point. And Mike, like I said, you're more than welcome to hang out. We're going to have a conversation sort of jumping from here to what we think we can do. If you got stuff to do, I will not be insulted if you need to go. But we're going to bring Kenny Johnson on here in a second and talk about, okay, like, is this, and I think you mentioned this feels like a moment where it's something is going to change. Now, what it is, I don't know. And what can be done, not sure. But that's a discussion that we're going to have next. You're more than welcome to hang out for that if you would like.
I'll probably go. I'll listen in and watch you guys later with Kenny.
Wonderful.
He's a good guy.
Well, listen, Mike, thank you.
Get back to doing my day.
Thank you, Magic Mike.
Yeah, thanks for everything that you did.
Oh, wow. I don't know if that name.
No, hey, we workshopped it a little bit.
That's associated with some other people. Yeah, but
not that kind of Magic spreadsheet, Mike.
It's because you know how to dance
there
in
we go.
spreadsheets.
You're getting better, Lauren.
Shed any unneeded data instead of close.
All right. Well, listen, Mike, thanks again. Seriously,
thank you guys
for everything you do. And thanks for saving my butt a couple years ago at Wadapalooza with, tracking all the weights that were being lifted.
Oh, yeah.
You do great work behind the scenes, and you're one of the guys that does not get the recognition that he deserves for keeping the sport going. And we appreciate everything you're doing. And if you guys haven't already, go to @known_knowable.
You got it.
That's your Instagram profile. You can see the link to the spreadsheet. You can dive into all that stuff and give Mike a follow. He's just a good dude too. So.